Hello, and welcome to the Canticlear podcast, where we accompany our recordings of the Psalms with conversations about the rich wisdom of the Psalter, the storied history of Psalm chant, and the place of both in our congregations today. Joining me is Susannah Black Roberts, perhaps best known for her work as senior editor of Plough magazine, but she has her fingers in so many pies that I'm not sure where else to begin. She's a journalist, freelance writer, pro-life activist, avid proponent of the common good, and my fellow musical theater addict. And of course, she is part of the power couple instrumental in bringing my husband and I together. She and her husband, theologian Dr. Alistair Roberts, spend their time between her native Manhattan and his native English Midlands, whence I believe she joins us today.
That is
Welcome,
correct.
Susannah.
It's so good to be here. At some point, as a bonus episode of the podcast, you should have me and Alistair reading the toast that we
Oh my goodness, you would
it
have
was
to edit it first.
no, absolutely not. Unedited.
So for our wedding, Alistair and Susannah gave the only toast, which was a dramatic reading of the texts that led to mine and Ryan's getting together, and they are metaphysically spicy. I something like that. Anyway, let's get right to this, Susannah. So when I started this project back in, I guess it was November 2020 or 2021, something like that,
Mhm.
you were the first and most avid fan. Why would that be?
Um, in a way, the least important reason is because you had just suffered this brain surgery that had left you blind. And this was a way for you to pursue your proper human work, despite that. And I was extremely psyched about that. But that is kind of like, that's like not the most important reason. The most important reason was that um, I'd been getting kind of psalm chant pilled
Mm.
because of being sort of around Theopolis types, and we can probably talk about that more later. And your approach to psalm chanting was very deeply informed by your love of musical theater, and that was obvious from the get-go. And I this kind of like gave me a new understanding of what it meant to chant psalms and what we could hope for from them, um, which I think we've kind of like developed in conversation and in other podcasts and in like I think pieces you've written for me, maybe. I can't remember. But like it's been a conversation that's been going on for about 2 years now. And um it's really like your Canticlear was kind of the thing that started me thinking about this. So that's kind of why I was hyped for it.
Amusingly enough, of course, it was Alistair who provided some of the uh, inspiration for my doing the psalm chanting because he
That's
had
right.
done the lectionary readings where she was recording. I guess he was actually recording them every day. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was doing this was his so this the other thing that this was about was like this was Alistair's and my courtship, and then it kind of led into Brittany and Ryan's courtship. So
Mm-hmm.
it's this like this whole conversation is like deeply fraught in fabulous ways. Um but yes, Alistair had decided as his COVID project that he was going to do a commentary on the whole Bible, which led to him uh, essentially going through the ACNA 2019 lectionary and reading the lectionary readings, but also doing commentary on them and then filling in the gaps. And so that was it was like a daily discipline that he was doing to kind of, you know, during COVID as a way of keeping going and keeping sane and doing this incredible project. And my impression is that you got the idea from him and then talked to him about it and he encouraged you. Is that right?
I can't remember if I actually talked to him about it. Maybe I had kind of like spitballed about it on Twitter or something. But I remember I was listening to his daily lectionary because he did it as a podcast and was like, oh, it would be so cool if I could find um, like chants of the Psalms for the daily Psalms as well. Because, of course, the Anglican morning prayer, you read through all of the Psalms, all 150 Psalms every month. So it's, somewhere between 4 and 8 Psalms a day, with, of course, the exception of 119. And so I was looking for that online, and I was having a hard time finding on YouTube where you might be able to hear all of the Psalms, um, or listen to them in a clear and well communicated manner, well sung as well, of course. I was like, well, then I'll just do it. But of course, I think this was spring of 2020, before my surgery, and I was still working a full time job for a theater company at the time, which,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
right.
with
You
20,
started out
yeah,
before that. Okay.
right. So with COVID, um, it was actually busier for the theater company because we were just trying to figure out what to do. um, and so I didn't actually have any time for what people like to call a COVID project, until, of course, God was like, well, now you do have time because I have taken your sight from you, and now you've got to dedicate it to other things. So yeah, that's kind of where that ended up coming from. So after I had recovered a bit from the surgery, because my surgery was in early 2021, was my last surgery. You encouraged me to jump
Mhm.
right on board, and I believe it was, you said, hey, if you can get X number of Psalms recorded by this date, I'll feature you in Plow, and that's what
That's right.
really
I did. I
got
was a
my
little
butt
bit of
in gear.
blackmail.
Yeah.
This was
Mhm.
when, wait, I thought your surgery was before Christmas because we baked you that
Yeah,
cookie.
it was I had two surgeries. So I had one
Okay.
before Christmas, and then one in February.
Do you still have
Yeah.
your brain surgery cookie?
Yes, I do. It's right here.
Oh,
I have a prop today
oh, wow.
because we haven't put our Christmas tree up yet. So this is very exciting. It's like one of those unwrapping videos. I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
very good at them,
Yeah.
though.
There's some good ASMR like sound effects going on. I like
Yes, there we go. There it is.
Oh, look at that.
And it's all dipped in wax too, so I can hang it on our Christmas tree here when we
Hey, okay.
when we finally get it.
We just got
Yeah.
ours and it's very like aggressive. It hurts me. Like it's very pokey and
Oh, is it a blue
like
spruce?
yeah, it's a blue spruce and it kind of hurts me when I t like get near it. So it's a
Yes.
little bit difficult, but it
Yeah.
smells really good.
Yeah, and the best kind of tree if you have like cats.
Yeah, because well, why?
Will
Because they don't chew on it
deter
because they
them.
don't like it.
Yeah, they'll deter the spiky pine needles.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So back to the Psalms.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You have mentioned that you've been to some Psalm events at Theopolis. They're doing some great work there. With I think they have 50 Psalms so far in a Psalter,
Hmm.
that they're trying to work on chants for all of them with translations by James Jordan,
Hmm.
original translations. So they have Psalm events, and I think you've been to some sort of Psalm roar or something like that over there in the UK. Can you tell
I
us about those
have.
experiences?
Yeah. So the U.S. Psalm chant organization is Theopolis. That's the I mean, there are more psalm chant organizations than Theopolis, but the one that I know is Theopolis. And then in the UK, there's this guy called Tim Vasby Burney, who's just a C of E vicar, who, if you're a fan of Tom Holland's Rest is History podcast, you'll
Mm-hmm.
often hear Tom refer to top vicar, like he's top vicar Tim Vasby Burney, and so he's like a Rest is History podcast like power fan as well as being a sort of evangelical Anglican vicar. And he has started doing these things called psalm roars, which are you chant psalms really loudly and you
Nice.
and he's been kind of encouraging people from his area, which is I'm trying to remember where he is. Shropshire. He's in Shropshire, I
Oh.
believe, and which is not far from us. And so we get together and roar some psalms. And I've only been to one. Alistair, I think, has been to three.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very impressive thing, and it's similar in a way to um the vibe of Theopolis psalm chanting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think Yuri Brito, who's now the presiding minister of the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, his church down in Florida, they do psalm roars as well. That's what they also call
Okay.
them that.
Yeah,
But I
that
think
makes
it's
sense
more
to me.
psalm metrical psalms, less
Okay.
chanting, more
Yeah.
metrical psalms. Yeah, so you have your, as I mentioned, your fingers in lots of different pies and in different corners of Christendom. So you're there in New York, very Anglican between your New York parish and then also England, of course.
Hmm.
Um, you might also call it Tim Keller's New York.
Hmm.
Um, and then Theopolis, we both are involved with the Davenant Institute,
Hmm.
and probably, of course, the Anabaptist corner of Plow.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, have you seen the interest in the Psalms as widespread as you expected? More so, less so?
I mean, I didn't really, I didn't grow up Christian, so I don't know. I don't have a good baseline. My sense is that from what I've been told, psalm singing even, and certainly psalm chanting was just not really a thing um, in non-liturgical churches, or in even in like a lot of liturgical churches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for a long time, and there's a recent resurgence in psalm chant, and I certainly like that is the sense that I'm getting. Like I keep running into people who are like, I started out at, vicars who are very excited because they're like, I started out at this church, 2 years ago, and they were, singing Hillsong songs, and I've like gradually got them to understand like what it means to chant the Psalms or to sing the Psalms. And that's a pattern. Like I've seen quite a bit of that. The Bruderhof tend to sing their own like adaptations of the Psalms, but they also primarily sing like lots and lots of English translations of like German folk songs and stuff.
Mm,
I mean, they sing everything though. That's not fair. Like they sing literally everything. And so, yes, among other things, they sing Psalms.
very cool.
Yeah.
So, but then what hath Broadway to do with Jerusalem?
Oh, great question. So this was I can't remember whether it was your idea or my idea, like to phrase it this way or to conceptualize it this way. It was
Mm,
like it was born of both our brains in some way, I feel. Um, but just the idea that in Broadway, starting sort of notably with Oklahoma, there was this new art form that was created, which was not, you stop the dramatic action and then you have a song and then you go back to the dramatic action of the play, but instead, the songs actually advance the dramatic action of the plot, reveal character, two people who at the beginning of a song were not together end up together, like
mhm,
the plot moves forward in the song. And what we're told about the Psalms and the way that the Psalms are presented in the tradition is that it's something like that. So actually singing the Psalms, chanting the Psalms, moves the plot of God's kingdom forward. It actually does something. Um, I was actually reading a short story of Robert Hugh Benson's from a collection called The Light Invisible, day before yesterday. And he talks about seeing a nun who's been cloistered for however long, who is part of an order of whatever the kind of nuns are that who don't speak. And
mm,
but so she spends her time in prayer, and he has this like moment of being like, he thought, isn't this a waste of time? Isn't this like a withdrawal from the world? Isn't this like an unfair denial of her gifts and energies to the people of God? And he's given this like miraculous kind of it's not a vision. He makes this distinction. It's not something that he sees, but he's given a perception of like the what goes on between the nun who's praying and then the host, in the which is in um at the altar, and then the
mhm,
world around them both. And there's this incredible sense of busyness. Like it's not just that there's power, it's that there's just a lot going on. And he
mm,
said, and it came to me that the nun was something like, it's like when you go into the office of like a high-flying financier in the city of London, and it's very calm and peaceful, and he doesn't speak in a loud voice, but like he makes decisions that move, the fortunes of nations. And that's what's going on with this nun and her prayer. And it seems to me that that is the vision that we have of what the Psalms do when we chant them and when we sing them. Like they're part of the busyness, the
Mm,
incredible forward motion of, the warfare and the advancement of the kingdom of God. But they're part of that in a kind of subversive and on the face of it, sort of, calm way. Although a lot of the
mhm.
Psalms, you actually start chanting them, are not like they're not all
Right.
23, you know.
Yeah, we're over here just singing about the mercy of God. It's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah.
us. We're not
Yeah.
we're not doing anything subversive at
Yeah.
all. No, just the thing that moves the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is the sense, especially if you think about the, you know, the sort of daily chanting of psalms that has gone on in religious foundations and religious houses since, there were, well, I mean,
Hmm.
probably this, I doubt that there's been a day, in 3,500 years that the Psalms haven't been, or I guess a little less than that, that the Psalms haven't been chanted, but like this has moved the church. This has been the engine of the church. And like, who knows where we would be if it hadn't been the case that people were chanting the Psalms every day,
Mm.
for the last 2,000 years, say.
Yeah, and to think that you can join in
Mhm.
that mighty throng, as the hymn puts it, and in continuity with
Mhm.
what other believers have been doing for centuries, thousands of years. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, so you have said on a couple of occasions that you think there will be musical theater in the eschaton. Can you
I
explain?
do. Yeah, I mean, I do because I have a very Tim Kellery or N.T. Wrightish, I guess, sense of what
Mhm,
the new heavens and the new earth are going to be like, which is really, this is one of the surprises of Christianity once you sort of like actually become Christian and learn the doctrine, because you kind of have, when you're not Christian, you have this vision that what Christians believe is that when you die, you go to heaven. And then speaking of singing psalms, you're like an angel maybe, and you're singing, and you're beholding God. And obviously, we're going to have the beatific vision. That is like what we are aimed at. But when we think of the beatific vision, we tend to think of like, the last canto, like Canto 33 in Paradiso, where Dante
mhm,
and Beatrice are like looking at the uncreated light with all the angels circling around it, and he's just beholding. And obviously, who knows what we don't know. But from
mhm,
what I can tell, yes, we will be beholding the beatific vision, but that does not mean we won't be doing other stuff. Um,
mhm,
and the other stuff is the work of the new heavens and the new earth, which are going to be, joined together in some sense. And this wedding of heaven and earth and renewal of both of them into this new kind of kingdom, which has things that you do in it, um, is what creation was aimed at all along. So, it's kind of going to be like the Garden of Eden, everything put right, but supernaturalized, and more so because it is in fact the melding of heaven with that earth. Um, and when we become Christian, what a major thing that happens is that we are set free to be human properly and to do all of the human stuff that, when we're kind of mired in, you know, and obviously, like, it's not like you become Christian and then you are like entirely free from sin, obviously,
mhm.
but like there is this sense of like you are being renewed to um do what you always should have been doing anyway.
Right.
um, you know, you're able to write without, for example, procrastinating. You know, you're able to sing without having, without, I mean, this is obviously, again, this is eschatological. So this is like, I have a cold at the moment. There won't be colds in the new heavens and the new earth. If I tried to sing, something from Hades Town now, it wouldn't go that well. Although it kind of would, because like
Amber
that
Gray's got that raspy
yeah, it
voice.
would sound like Amber Gray. Um, anyway, you know what man, I really hope that people who are listening to this have some basic Christian doctrine down because otherwise I'm going to sound totally incoherent. But I figure they
Yeah,
probably
that's okay. They'll look it up.
yeah. Anyway, I think that human action and human activity and human making subcreation is something that is part of what we're supposed to be doing. And we
Hmm.
will absolutely, I'm quite sure, be doing it in the New Jerusalem. I think there's going to be an arts district. I think I don't think we are going to be less material. I think
Yeah,
we might look back on ourselves now and think we were kind of insubstantial.
kind of
Um,
like the C.S. Lewis in The Great Divorce,
yeah,
the way he
yeah,
perceives of the shades as being so much less real that when they
yeah,
visit heaven, they're
yeah, yeah.
hurt
So,
by the reality of it. Yeah.
yeah. So I do think that among other things, all of the many things that humans are going to get up to in the New Jerusalem and the New Creation, broadly speaking, is musical theater.
There we go. Awesome. Well, I think we should probably let folks go now, but what I have to um, close with my typical question, which is, what is your favorite psalm or one that you're particularly enjoying right now,
Um,
whether to sing or just in general?
hang on, let me just look up the one that I think I mean. It's Psalm 27, and I've just
Hmm.
been um probably for the last 5 years, it's been the psalm that is most important to me. And it's gotten through me through some really tough times. And the sense of I've just one thing I ask, what is it? From the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Like
Hmm.
that sort of thing that just feels like it's a description of the heart of the world and like the heart of
Mm.
my own okayness. And like if that's not taken away from me, if I can live there, then whatever else happens, it's going to be okay. Um, and my pastor, my priest, Jim Saladin, shout out, to Annual Anglican. He gave that psalm to me when I was going through a very hard time about 5 years ago, and it's been key to me.
Yeah, that is beautiful. One of the psalms that I recorded recently talks about um, the soul being a sparrow that flies to the temple to find its rest,
Hmm.
flies to the house of the Lord to find
Hmm.
its rest. It's so beautiful. We often um, kind of put to the side as like a secondary issue, um, dwelling in the house of the Lord or with his people
Hmm.
or coming before him just in general, like, oh, we're too busy, oh, whatever. But it is a kind of rest that our souls need. And I think one of the things that the Psalms hit over and over again is our need for the Lord, our need to find our
Hmm.
rest in him and um, to become one with the Lord through Christ, of course, which the Psalms don't directly speak to, but definitely when you read them with the eyes of the New Testament, you can see that throughout for sure, as Neil in our last podcast was speaking to. Anyway, well, great. Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like this has been pretty fun time. um, Folks can find you at Plow Magazine on Twitter
On
at
Twitter at
Susania.
Susania,
Yeah,
um,
Suzania.
Zania, yeah, Suzania. Yeah, I got like really, uh, I got a sort of boost in my belief that I should be on Twitter because a guy who we met at Oxford, we were at Oxford over the weekend, and Rory Shiner, who's a friend of Alistair's, we met up with him and his four like ginger red-haired boys and his wife, and they were delightful. But he just came out with a book, and in his book, he quoted one of my tweets, And that like just absolutely like Alistair has been trying to convince me that I need to be less online, and that just like destroyed all of Alistair's kind of good
How
work.
funny.
I'm like,
Oh
yes, my
my.
tweets
In one
are
fell swoop. Well, that's awesome. I enjoy following you on Twitter for what that's worth.
well, I enjoy
Um,
following you on Twitter.
well, thank you. Well, thank you. At the end of this love fest here, y'all can like this video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube for more Canticleer goodness without the fuss. And then if this episode or any of our previous episodes have made your heart grow 3 sizes this Christmas tide, then you can head over to patreon.com/Canticleer and become a patron to support us. Next month, I will have Jonathan Ottaway, a music minister, and Father David Hyman, who was my priest at Holy Trinity Anglican in Chapel Hill. They will be on to talk about introducing a congregation to psalm chant and the joys and difficulties thereof. Until then, keep singing.